So I'm answering the question of the week, although I've been recording 2 questions today, and this is the second question. And I got this question the day of the school shooting. I think that was, a whole week ago from Friday. So still, very tragic news. Very difficult day for me, very difficult day for, I think, our entire nation. It was just honestly unfathomable for most of us to understand that anyone could, go through this process of, destroying these beautiful children, these innocent victims and all of this. So I got a question actually from a client of mine, and it was pretty emotionally charged, and I completely understood it. But the question was, how can God allow something like this to happen? And so I'm going to just share with you the response that I shared with him. And that response for me, and this is how I understand God and life and the reason that we're here. And so it's a very kind of complicated question, even though it seems simple. It's kind of complicated, and I'm going to share a couple things with you, and then I'm going to suggest a book that I think really is a great, validation for the way I experience reality. And you have to remember, this is how I experience reality. Other people have different interpretations of why things like this are allowed to happen. But in my experience, in my connecting with those that are on the other side, and my own guides, and just having learned about life through my own soul's awareness, what I've become aware of is the fact that we know from a soul point of view that this reality is temporary. We know that it is an illusion, meaning that it's not real on the sense of this is all there is. We know there is so much more. And the greatest way my guide actually explained it to me was that it's almost as if we are, before we come into this life, we are choosing to be a character in a play. And we step onto the stage and we don this personality and we don this agenda, this life plan, this life purpose, and basically like putting on the costume and putting on the role of the personality that we are going to incarnate as. And we step onto that stage knowing full well from our soul perspective that we are not truly the character that we're playing. It is simply a character that we have chosen to play, a role that we wanted to play, to experience, and it really is about the experience. I hate to use the word lesson. I hear that a lot. People say, oh, it's my lesson to learn, and there's such a little undercurrent of punishment attached to, or right and wrong, good and bad, attached to the idea of being here to learn lessons. The concept that fits better for me based on what feels true is that we're here to have experiences. Not experiences that we have to have, but experiences that we actually choose to have. And, from a very, infinite place of our soul, nothing frightens us. Nothing feels too much, too bad, too big. And so we come here very courageous. We come here very excited about our experience because we know that as we step onto the stage, we will move through these scenes of our lives, Act 1 and Act 2, and we will come to the end. And every one of us comes to the end of our life, and we have a finale. And we bow and leave, and take with us the experience of playing that character. So, in playing that character, this force that we know as God, there are, greater perspective to look at this as it is God itself actually standing up on that stage or stepping into that role, that we from our highest being are God, taking on these personalities and experiencing things. But if that's too big of a concept for you to imagine that you as a little soul, a creation of God, step onto that stage, and you're given full creative permission. So in some ways, as you step on stage, the lines aren't written for your play. The plot is written. What you came here to experience is written. But you must go through this play in an improv sort of way, where you get to just react and experience the experience firsthand, meaning there's non-interference. It doesn't mean that accidents will happen. It just means that we will creatively play within that role. And so this force that we know of as God or our Creator, the force that we go, why isn't it stepping in and doing something about these atrocities? That force, it knows as well as we know that all is well, that this is temporary, this is an illusion, this is an experience. And that the souls that came in, it doesn't interfere in their creative choice. And so this may be so deeply hard for some to understand. But on some level, it is possible that each one of us chooses exactly what happens to us for the experience of it. Because we know that when the final curtain comes down, whatever age we are, even if we're here for 2 months in this world, that we take with us all the experiences up to that point. The one thing that gave me some sort of comfort or peace when this all happened was that I knew that those children most likely only suffered a few moments of fear, and then they were embraced immediately into the light of their own soul. They were surrounded by angels. They were surrounded by love. And they were lifted out of that traumatic experience and returned home to a place that heals that experience. And so that gave me some peace. What doesn't give one piece is those that are left behind and that have this trauma written into their own journey and their own process. And it's hard to believe that we would choose anything like that. But I can tell you, this is why I want to recommend, there's a book. A wonderful lady named Natalie Sudman, S-U-D-M-A-N, wrote a book called The Application of Impossible Things. And Natalie died in a roadside bombing in, I think it's Iraq, a few years ago, and returned to her body and had a very different near-death experience that I found so enlightening to read, because there is a perspective in her book. So I highly recommend you read it if you struggle with this at all. But there's a perspective in this book that addresses the nonchalance of our soul, that, it really is not a big deal. The drama and the violence and the traumas that we go through as persons, while we're in the body, these things feel like big deals. I can't pay my bill, I'm late for work. These things feel like big deals to us. And they're meant to. They're meant to feel like big deals so we can have and embrace this experience. But when we return to the perspective of our soul, they're not big deals. Because it's just as if the actor who steps off the stage and looks back at the character on the stage that they played, whether they played a villain, or they played a hero, or they simply played a chorus part. They don't look at that part as their whole identity. They look at it as an experience that they had, that they now take with them and incorporate and integrate into their vast, infinite soul. So, the only part of you that will really not like to hear that is your ego, which wants to be important and fears not being important. It doesn't want to be one of many, but that's the way it is. So I hope that answers your question a little bit about why does God allow these atrocities to happen, these tragedies. It's because the God that we reflect as God is a non-interfering force of love. It can only interfere if the soul, which is given full creative power, changes its mind about what it wants to experience, and then does that, makes the change. So we can find some peace in knowing that these beautiful children have incredible, vast, infinite souls, and they have returned to those souls and are with and not denied access to their loved ones that they left behind, to try to help them find peace as they continue their role in life and finish out their journey. And it gives me incredible happiness to know that these families will all be reunited with the ones that they love eventually. So I hope that answers the question. It may spark more questions for you. If that's the case, please feel free to email me. I'll put my email at the end of this video. God bless.